styles, film study, prediction, Teofimo Lopez versus Jermaine Ortiz. Let's go. Stylistically comparing Teofimo Lopez and Jermaine Ortiz, we have a speedy technician with high IQ and intelligent footwork who pumps a high volumous utility jab in Jermaine Ortiz. And in Teofimo Lopez, we have an athletic, explosive, heavy-handed, flashy, aggressive, stubborn, front foot fighter. In boxing, you hear the phrase, styles make fights. Well, that's the basis of my film studies on Ant's Boxing channel. Now let's begin our film study on Jermaine Ortiz. Jermaine Ortiz pumps the jab to push Moran back, but he also uses it to continuously gauge distance and keep Moran's attention on a jab possibly coming his way. Here you see Jermaine Ortiz take a step back to create space and make Moran fall short of his punch. Then Ortiz follows up with 3 jabs to the body to back up Moran and not let him feel comfortable closing distance and attacking Jermaine Ortiz. Here we have more step backs and more jabs to the body, repeating the process. Moran closes the distance with a couple lead hands, and Ortiz waits for Moran to get in range where Ortiz can once again pump several jabs of his own to back Moran up. More jabs by Ortiz, and then you see Ortiz gets timed with a nice jab himself. The reason Ortiz got timed with this jab was because his approach got repetitive and predictable. Every time Moran imposed himself, Ortiz fired back with jabs as soon as Moran came off his punch or combination and got in range. So Moran noticed that, and Moran threw a nice stiff jab himself and caught Ortiz clean. In this sequence, you see Jermaine Ortiz jab and get countered with a right hook and a left hand to the body. Then Jermaine Ortiz throws a straight right and gets countered with a lead hook over his right hand, which hurt Jermaine Ortiz. Once again, this shows Jermaine Ortiz can become repetitive and predictable. Jermaine Ortiz switches into the southpaw stance and begins to counterpunch more. He also uses more step backs and footwork to reset Moran. And you can see when Ortiz resets Moran's feet using lateral movement, Ortiz takes advantage and uses the jab to disrupt Moran's timing and rhythm. Now, despite the movement and footwork of Jermaine Ortiz being a positive, Moran shows that if you cut off the ring and force Jermaine Ortiz against the ropes or in a corner, you have a better chance of succeeding with combinations than you do in the middle of the ring, where Ortiz can step back or move around. Here you see Moran continue to force Ortiz against the ropes, and he hurts him with a body shot as Ortiz tries to maneuver his way out of that pinch. But Jermaine Ortiz is smart and he's tough. You see Moran get overzealous because he got Ortiz hurt, and Moran gets trapped and timed by Jermaine Ortiz, and Moran ends up getting hurt himself. So don't sleep on Ortiz just because he's hurt and retreating, because he's reading you and calculating his move in the process. Now let's move on to Teofimo Lopez and his film study. Now off rip, you see Teofimo Lopez has crazy speed and explosiveness, but Kambosos renders it useless with a simple step back and pivot to the side. Here you have Teofimo Lopez striking in a straight line without any setup, and Kambosos once again steps back and makes him fall short and miss, stepping to the side and resetting Teofimo's positioning. You can see when George Kambosos lets off combinations and jabs, Teofimo Lopez doesn't counter or throw any punches with him. Teofimo resorts to stepping or leaning back and playing defense. Teofimo Lopez has a very bad habit of depending on his speed and athleticism to close distance and land one big shot, and when Teofimo lands clean and has the crowd going crazy for him, he gets overzealous and begins to rev up, but in the process he gets a little careless and reckless and undisciplined with his offense, and that's exactly how he gets dropped by Kambosos. Teofimo Lopez also has a bully style where he just comes forward for you, but if you pick smart movements, you can reset him, and if you throw combinations, you can keep him with his hands at home, because Teofimo isn't good at punching while moving. Teofimo Lopez is, however, very persistent and resilient, so no matter how much success you are having against him, he will keep doing what he does until something lands. But you see here once again, with good lateral movement and creating space, Teofimo Lopez is stuck rotating off his front foot and resetting. Because Teofimo Lopez is so come forward, you have a lot of opportunity to time him, just like Kambosos did here. And on top of that, Teofimo keeps his lead hand low, combined with the heavy front foot. Timing Teofimo with an overhand right from the orthodox position is a great punch to use against Teofimo Lopez. That's how Kambosos also dropped him in the first round. But fortunately for Teofimo Lopez, Jamaine Ortiz doesn't throw many overhand rights. However, that is definitely something that Teofimo needs to work on. Teofimo Lopez once again continues to overextend to close distance, but Kambosos with simple step backs can create space to make Teofimo fall short and miss. Here's more of Teofimo Lopez and his persistence and resilience. Teofimo was able to land, and he revs up the pressure late in the fight and is able to score a knockdown. This is a testament to Teofimo's resilience and why you can't sleep on him throughout the entire fight, but it's also a great indicator of why movement is so important against Teofimo Lopez, because Teofimo Lopez wasn't able to land flush when Kambosos was stepping back and moving to the side, but when he stood flat-footed in front of him, Teofimo dropped him. So now for the million-dollar question: who wins and how? First, let's lay out both fighters' strengths and weaknesses. Jamaine Ortiz has a very good high-volume utility jab. He moves a lot, has a good step-back game, great hand speed, he's a good counter-puncher, and he's tough. We saw even when he was hurt to the body against Moran, he was able to maneuver and flip the script. As for his weaknesses, Jamaine Ortiz is repetitive, therefore he can become predictable. He starts off fast, so he tires out in the mid-rounds, and despite his good movement, he does allow himself to get caught in corners and against the ropes. Also, he's only fought 12 rounds one time in his professional career against Vasily Lomachenko, so his gas tank is not thoroughly battle tested. Teofimo Lopez's strengths are his power, speed, athleticism, chin, and resilience. We saw Teofimo Lopez getting outboxed by George Kambosos, but Teofimo Lopez never stopped doing what he was doing, and late in the 10th round he scored a knockdown and hurt Kambosos, despite taking all the punishment that he did. As for the weaknesses of Teofimo Lopez, he follows you instead of cutting off the ring, so it's easy to move on him. He doesn't technically or skillfully set up his power punches. Instead, he depends on his athleticism to lunge and overextend to land one big punch, and above all, he doesn't make adjustments. He just comes forward the whole time. In this matchup, I favor Ortiz in the early rounds because he starts fast, throwing a lot of jabs and using a lot of movement, which would render Teofimo Lopez useless at first. But I don't think Ortiz has the power to get through Teofimo Lopez's granite chin. So while he may outscore Teofimo Lopez early on, I don't think he'll have a physical impact on Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo Lopez's persistence and resilience will begin to shine through in the mid-rounds, as Jamaine Ortiz begins to tire out from all the movement and voluminous jabbing that he does. Teofimo Lopez will begin to land more with his lunging punches and combinations from the mid-range. Now when this happens, I do believe that Teofimo Lopez has a great chance of hurting Ortiz, because once again, Jermaine Ortiz has only gone 12 rounds once in his pro career, and that was against Vasily Lomachenko, who doesn't nearly have the power that Teofimo Lopez has, and he was still able to hurt Jermaine Ortiz. But Jermaine Ortiz is tough, and he's shown he can think and calculate under pressure, so it won't be easy for Teofimo Lopez to finish Jermaine Ortiz, even if he hurts him. The last 4 rounds of this fight will be extremely crucial and telling of both guys' trajectory, where they stand, and those last 4 rounds is where this fight will be won. Jamaine Ortiz will need to be disciplined and responsible. Stick and move, play defense, jab the crap out of Teofimo, and keep him on the outside, because if he allows Teofimo to bulldoze his way in, he will lose, and it could come by decision, TKO, or KO. On the other hand, Teofimo Lopez will need to cut off the ring, jab with Ortiz, so that he doesn't allow Ortiz to find his rhythm or get confident, and set up his big shots behind the jab as well, because if he doesn't, Jermaine Ortiz will box circles around Teofimo and end up walking away with a decision. This is an extremely competitive fight that can literally go either way. I can see Teofimo Lopez winning via decision or stoppage. I could see Jermaine Ortiz winning via decision. I can also see a draw. But as for my final prediction, I got Jermaine Ortiz winning split or majority decision. In my opinion, Jermaine Ortiz moves too much for Teofimo Lopez, and Teofimo Lopez struggles against a good jab, which Ortiz clearly has. I do give Teofimo Lopez a puncher's chance because he's explosive enough to catch Jermaine Ortiz slipping and hurt him or possibly put him out. But at the end of it all, I got a 60-40 in favor of Jermaine Ortiz. Let me know if y'all agree or disagree in the comments below, and thank you for watching this video. That's it for Ant's Boxing Channel. I'm out.
Sube eso hasta arriba, vamos, dale duro. Yo salgo a la calle buscando mi gente, cuando de repente todos los delincuentes que queden en mi vida, buena mala suerte que son mi familia, no importa la sangre. Jesús hizo agua en vino.